Welcome to You Heard It From Us, the podcast where adventure meets advice. I'm DNDWife, your artistic storyteller and dedicated miniature painter.
And I'm Dungeon Master Eguile, your seasoned storyteller with a flair for epic tales and a passion for bringing our worlds to life. Together, we are a couple of nerds.
Whether you're navigating the depths of the dungeon or the dynamics of your gaming table, we're here to explore the vibrant world of tabletop role-playing games with you.
Each episode, we dive into topics that every gamer can relate to, like, is there really such thing as too many dice?
Or how to keep the peace when your co-adventurer is also your co-pilot in life.
We share our own trials, triumphs, and tales from the enchanting world of Extraeus and beyond, all while connecting with you, our amazing TTRPG community.
From community polls to social media shoutouts, we want you to be part of our adventure. So grab your favorite set of dice
and join us as we embark on a quest to make your tabletop gaming experience more fun and meaningful.
This is You Heard It From Us,
where every episode is an adventure. Welcome back, adventurers, to another episode of You Heard It From Us. I'm your host, DM Eguile.
And I'm DNDWife. Today we're asking the big question. Is it good to take a break from your TTRPG sessions?
Whether you're running a multi-year campaign or juggling life's chaos, sometimes you just need to hit pause. And we're diving into our experiences with breaks, what the community thinks, and tips that can make your breaks work without losing that momentum you have in your campaign.
So grab your dice or maybe a cup of coffee and let's talk about how to keep the adventure alive while giving yourself some time to rest.
So obviously this one is a little different, as this is just kind of a question that you and I faced a few years ago. That we thought would be kind of a good one to address on You Heard It From Us. Mm-hmm. And it was basically, is it a good idea to take a break from your TTRPG sessions?
Yeah, and we're seeing that with this new year coming up, and all the holidays as well. Right. It really kind of brought us home.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it is. It's, you got everything, we're a player and a DM combo, so we see a little bit of both from, getting bored with your character because you've been playing it so long to DM burnout, right? Like all of these are real things that happen. And, when you're running a campaign for like months or years, it just feels like you're like nonstop sprinting in a marathon, especially if you homebrew. Oh my goodness. But like sometimes you need to pause, you need to take a break, you need to let your mind kind of mellow out for a little bit, because otherwise it's just going to be a problem.
Right. Like when we first started, it was really great. We were super into D&D, and so we wanted to do it all the time. But after like a few years of doing it consistently, every other weekend, getting together for sessions, it got a little difficult, I will say. When you do something for so long, it's not that it lost its funness, because it never has. I love D&D. But I think it became like as if you're living a second life, because you kind of are. So it felt like I was living two lives at once and trying to juggle them both. And sometimes I just felt like I couldn't do it all as a player. And then as a DM, I thought, if I'm going through this, my husband as a DM might be going through the same thing. So maybe a break might be helpful.
That'll be the worst thing on earth.
Yeah,
right.
I was really worried that we might derail the campaign or mess up the momentum of our story. I was really worried that might happen. But in the end, I think it brought us closer as a group because we give time for us to deal with like our stuff IRL.
Yeah. And as always, with celebrating the new year, we always have to reach out to our listeners out there and joining the Couple of Nerds Discord, where we have kind of all our information. Even when we go on breaks, that's where we still kind of talk, and you can find us. But as always, be sure to go out there, review, share, get this podcast out. Anything we can kind of have, any subscribe, anything will always be grateful to us. But we always love also hearing about your experiences. If you have any experiences with taking breaks, what worked, what didn't, let us know how that impacted your game, because that's always kind of the whole big crust of our community, is everyone sharing their stories.
I definitely want to hear, what other people have gone through or how long they had to go before they were like, we need a break.
Right, yeah. And I mean, like you pointed out, like when we first started, we got hooked hard. And so, we were every other weekend. Yeah. Now, I was at this point still using campaign books, so it wasn't like that hard. Right. But really, every other weekend, almost 10 to 12 hour long sessions.
Yeah, at minimum 6 hours.
Right, minimum. That was the only, we wouldn't even wake up if it wasn't that long.
It wasn't at least 10,
and I just remember eventually, after probably like 2 or 3 years of straight every other week. I think we were calculating like thousands of hours of D&D.
It was crazy.
I just remember spending like more and more hours like prepping and getting things ready. And it just got to a point where it was like all I could see was just a mountain of more work followed by more work.
Yeah. No end in sight.
And it's that thing where it's like, because of the way D&D works, it's like this ever expanding lattice.
Yeah.
So if you don't take a break, it becomes where there's so many story and plot lines you never really catch. And I got to a point where it just was, you get to where you're like, okay, do I just kind of cut the story back so I don't write as much, or do I, and then you start kind of thinking to yourself, well, wait, what am I doing now? Am I not providing the best story I can? Then why am I a dungeon master?
Why am I doing this?
Yeah. And so, I get nervous, get really nervous because, even when we would have moments, because I don't know, I always want to reach this out. It always happens for us that whenever we schedule a session, it could be 3 weeks out. It's going to be on a holiday, a person's like big
birthday
life event,
or something.
Yeah, someone's wedding. And so it always ends up happening. And I always got like worried when we would just skip one session and it'd be like, oh my goodness, it's going to be a whole month before we play. And I'm like, oh, the momentum's screwed. When we get back, they're not going to remember anyone. They're not going to even
We're going to have to start over.
Yeah, it's like basically right. Like it's kind of like how I feel with like some RPGs I used to play where, you get like a quarter of the way in, you try to play, you're like, all right, I'll just restart.
Right, I can't.
So that was what I was kind of worried about in that aspect, because one of the biggest things the DM loves is obviously that kind of momentum, the story, when they're driven, when your players are just itching for the next session. Yeah. And if you're like, hey, see you guys in like 2 months, what if they find that somewhere else? Like, what if they go, it sounds terrible. Like, oh, what if they go find another DM? But at the same time, that is kind of the hard thing. Both DM and players alike are always trying to find that table that they can play on. And sometimes, if they're given an opportunity to find something, it might now conflict with your table or your schedule. So really, I had to eventually, I think you talking with me and kind of
I had to put my foot down.
Right, seeing it really gave me that room to breathe. And it kind of obviously being that like Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's all kind of coincide at the end of the year.
Pretty much.
It was like that would be the most logical time to take it. And honestly, after like the first year that we did that, it just gave me that time to even plan more. And it's funny because we'll say like, oh, we're going to take 2 months. And a lot of times it'll be like 6 weeks because even we get to a point where we're like, okay, now it's time to play again.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't always go the full length, but it's always nice to know that you kind of have
a little leeway.
That one. But it's nervous as a DM, like being a dungeon master and just being like, all right, no gameplay. You feel kind of like this authoritative jerk because you are kind of the lich.
The gatekeeper.
If one player goes, I'm not coming, it's like, okay, well, we're going to still play.
We'll have it without you.
The DM says I'm not coming, there is no game.
Right, unless you're like a rotating table of DMs or something, but that's rough too.
Right, and so I go through all these things as a dungeon master, and then I imagine like a player, as like yourself, goes through kind of almost the same, if not different.
Right. It's the same in the sense that we get that same fear that if we miss just one session, we're gonna miss out on like the best adventure. And also if we miss a session but nobody else does, like the FOMO is real.
Right.
You just want to be there. You can't not, like we have people who go out of their way to make sure they appear at sessions because we just don't want to miss anything.
Right, making back alley deals with spouses and roommates and stuff to make
signing
sure
away their soul,
right, just so that they can make it to the next session.
Yeah, so it's really important to us, but as a player, you do get to certain points. I think maybe Sam Riegel with Scanlan might have felt that way when he switched out.
Right.
Like
that player
when you
fatigue.
spend so many years with just one person, one character that you're playing, basically living a life for this person. Sometimes you get a little bored. If it's not your life, you can't stop living your own life, right? But I can stop playing a different character.
I always love, because that's like, as a DM, that's something I'll never experience. Just because I can, I want to make a swirly bard. Okay, make a swirly bard. I want to make a uptight, paladin. Cool. But obviously for a player, you either have to find a new table or find a way to inadvertently get rid of your other character.
Imagine being a DM. You can't just stop being the DM, then the whole table stops, right? But I can always be like, hey, I want to take a break break, maybe use a different character.
True.
But oftentimes also you just want to take like an actual break from Dungeons and Dragons. Taking a break from your character is one thing, but like taking a break from doing session, like that's a big social event that you do. And for us, it's a long social event. It's hours. It's a whole day almost for us.
And we analog. We write everything down. We
take
record,
notes.
And you usually are one of the more of the lore keepers of our sessions, so you're always frantically taking notes.
Yeah, constantly. And so it can get a little intimidating when you're doing that all the time. So taking an actual break from playing in general, especially during the holidays where it's already busy, you're already dealing with a bunch of stuff coming at you from all sides, family everywhere. It adds so much more stress if you're also playing D&D. So taking a break really helps.
Yeah, and I feel like it's also like a whole different thing to like as a player suggest a break versus like the DM going, all right, I need a break. Everyone's like, fine, okay. Right. But like if a player is going like, hey guys, we should stop playing. It's almost like they're like, burn the non-believer.
Yeah, like what did you just say?
Everyone
just stares at them in silence.
Yeah, but the real thing to look at it is that like, as with everything, there are pros and cons. There are ways to look at, there are some good things to taking breaks, but unfortunately there are some negative things that you kind of, if you're more aware of, you can kind of understand and be more kind of ahead of the game so that it doesn't affect your game as much.
Right. That's true.
So for me, like on the DM perspective, like the way I always look at it is obviously it just helps with burnout. Like it's always nice to have that time to write the story and not be very much like in a hurry, the couple hours or days before the session.
Yeah.
I think really getting, especially when, you get to major like plot arcs where it's like, okay, they've been in this city, now they're moving on. Okay, I haven't started any of that.
Yeah.
And being able to kind of have that kind of opportunity to build those up, it really gives you, these breaks give you a chance to pause, reflect, and look at the campaign again, kind of give that game day review, the Madden, drawing on the,
look at the whole,
using the white, the wet erase pens and marking
what's going to be our play.
This story needs, and this enemy needs to be smarter. But you also, it gives me a lot of opportunities to see kind of, where I could see plot twists and more character development play out, as well as, sometimes I find that having a break does help build the story in a way, and that like, it's separation makes the heart fonder, and that excuse me, sometimes if I see players maybe, getting that story drag, having being gone for a while, it's now, oh man, I want to play. I'm very much more invested because it's been a while, and which is always kind of interesting because obviously I only really have the DM perspective.
That's right. You can only really speak for yourself, and I guess for the players, we can only speak for ourselves as well, but we can kind of see, what the other player is feeling a little bit. Right. I think on our side, as a player, it just lets us kind of recharge and refocus. We have it a little easier because we only have to deal with one person. Yeah. So it's not as, I would say, like not as intense to need a break, but sometimes you need it for just like clarity almost, because things can get muddled with your character. You're like, oh, well, is that something I need or is that something my character needs? And then, so sometimes taking a break is really nice. You can feel pretty disengaged with your character if you've been playing them for a long time. And you're like, oh, they just kind of feel like the NPC you're playing in your video game. They don't matter. They can die as many times as they want because you can always respawn.
Yeah, I get you on that one.
Right. So you end up not caring as much, and you might end up putting your character in dangerous situations or doing stupid stuff that you normally wouldn't do that is technically not part of what your character would do, because you're not really feeling it right now.
Right. I feel like, especially with my group, and I see, sometimes with you guys having such a taste for D&D, usually this is kind of like an opportunity to do kind of those crazy one-shots is what I've seen. And give you that kind of opportunity to be like, okay, well, the main campaign is this long, story-driven with passion and all that. maybe I just want to be a little chaotic monkey and destroy things and throw fireballs. We'll do that in a side story. So that way you don't have to worry about ruining your DM's well-crafted story, and you get a little bit of the chaos out of your system.
On top of that, you give other people the chance to be DM for a day or for a couple of sessions, right? It gives not just the DM a break, but it gives other people the opportunity to try their hand at DMing if they like it. Like I think during one of our breaks, I ran a one shot, and I was a little terrified about it because it'd been my first time DMing. It was great. I ran a little like carnival one shot. Everybody had fun. I bought some prizes to give to people IRL. That way they felt like they were at a carnival. And really, if you just come at it with the sense of having fun, the sense of having adventure, I think it can turn into a really nice experience and something that a player might not have attempted if they hadn't taken a break.
Right. It's always nice. I mean, for me too, I think like you were kind of saying, is sometimes the players start to, because of their like fatigue, kind of defect from their character's like main personality. So it kind of gives them that opportunity, especially which, we'll go on later, especially if you kind of work around the break and use it as also an opportunity for characters to have that kind of self-reflection. Like, okay, where was I from session 0 and am I still on that path? But if you're just going and going and going, you're just kind of riding the train.
There's no time to stop.
Until eventually you realize that, that quintessential joke where it's like, wait, did we become the bad guys accidentally? Like we didn't pay attention to something and now we're the bad guys?
Yep.
So I think that could be really interesting, down the road.
I think it can also kind of hit like a refresh button on the group dynamic, right? Like it can get stale traveling with the same people all the time. But if you take a break and come back to it, the adventure feels more fresh. And then you can rediscover your friendships as characters, see who likes each other. Do you still hate each other? Stuff like that. And it makes for a better story, I think.
But as always, as much as, you want to talk about how good something is, it's really ridiculous to think that there isn't some sort of, negative or consequence.
There are always drawbacks.
Right. And so like for DMs and the things you have to be aware of is obviously momentum being lost.
Yeah.
That's tough. Like when you're in the middle of like a grand story and everyone's just on the seat of their pants and, the main bad guy is about to kill a village and you only have 4 more days and then you go on a 6-month break.
Yeah.
And then you come back and it's like, wait, what were we doing? Why is this important?
Right.
And you're going to spend almost the probably session getting back into the game
and trying to feel that same sense of urgency you felt for the mission before you went on break.
What accent did I do? I've lost track. and you got to also, players are players, and as much as as a DM, I think that my world is the most important world. If your players are going out and playing in other campaigns or little one shots, they might lose and forget important details in yours or blend some in. Where they're like, oh yeah, we have this. It's like, no, you don't. That was something else you've done. Or thinking there's an NPC they need to find that existed in some other person's campaign. So there's a lot of times you have to be, play that up because, there's always what's going to end up happening. You could have a 1-month break. I feel like you could have a 3-week break. It could be any kind of break. There's always going to be one player that's going to be like, wait. So what are we doing again?
Who are we fighting?
Who's the bad guy? Like what? And it kind of, everyone kind of has to do that sigh of like, okay,
let's go over it again.
And then it becomes a secondary thing of like, is it a meta thing, right? Like, are you going to just explain outside of the story, or does the player, because the player doesn't know, does the character not know? And then it's like, okay, now the metaverse is all screwed up because how could the player not know the guy who killed his family? That kind of stuff. And so it becomes tough. And as a DM, I mean, if you're like me and kind of wants to have that as close to realistic as a fantasy story can be, you can be really scared to ruin that momentum. That could be terrifying as a dungeon master.
Because it can be devastating to the story, and then you don't have a campaign anymore because nobody knows what's going on.
Because getting back up the hill is just not worth it. It's not going to take it, and especially if you have to take another break.
Absolutely. Especially if the break goes on for much longer than intended. And that's happened to us before where, we thought we were taking just like a week off, and then it turns into a month.
Gets sick or something else happens. It always happens.
Right. Right. And so during those times where it's more extended, you do lose the risk of losing that connection to your character, the dynamic you had with your character. You risk the chance of your players becoming distracted by other hobbies, other things that they appreciate, other commitments that they have to their family or friends.
Because suddenly that time they used to have scheduled
it's
is now free.
Yeah, which means they can apply it to something else that is important to their time. Right. So, that's always tough. And then you have troubles reassembling the group, and then you can't get the campaign back on track.
They can't be like the Avengers. You can't just yell out Avengers assemble or nerds assemble.
Right. If you're not careful, these breaks can turn into the unintentional campaign finale. And then you've got to kind of plan to avoid that, if you don't want it to end.
And I feel like, even some people at our table have other tables that have become that.
Oh, yes.
The player Bricky, for instance, I think still has this looming table that has yet to meet in the last couple of years. With
COVID made it impossible,
right? With the
and
one
they never
hope
got
that
back.
they'll ever get back together, but essentially that story will always be on pause for them.
Yeah.
But as much as those cons are obviously something to worry about, if you kind of take proper precautions and do a little extra work ahead of time, you can make it where those cons are negligible, if not gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so for me, really, a big one is, detailed notes. Yeah. And this is on everyone. I mean, obviously, it's hard to be in the game and in going and things. But the way I look at it is that if you have 6 players like we do, if everyone's taking notes, well, then that's 6 different perspectives on a story, whether you miss something or not. It feels more organic for all of you to kind of have your own notes and be able to recant and talk and be like, oh, wait, I know this thing. Do you watch what realistically would happen? Not everyone gets the memory of every information. They would pick and choose what was important to them. So, that's really cool. I mean, even just a bullet point list of kind of what's going on, especially if you know the break is coming up. Yeah, that's going to help your future self so much. You're going to be thanking your future self because it's going to be like, oh, here's exactly what was going on at the end, and I left this at the end of my journal, knowing that we were not going to meet for a few months. Just and a little you basically sheet. Walk up and take over, and it's just like you never were gone.
And you're back. And I think part of this is something that we do too, is we record our sessions. Yeah, that's a part of it as well. If you Audio can helps. Do that, then you don't have to take as many crazy notes. You don't have to be worried that you're going to miss something because you can always go back and listen.
Yeah. Definitely cool. And like for us too, is we do a lot of like character journals, which also helps in seeing kind of what is the mental perspective of your character.
Oh, absolutely. Another thing I recommend is wrapping up the last session before a break with a dramatic moment, not necessarily a cliffhanger.
Not the whole everyone's dead.
Right.
Bye. See you in 6 months.
No. But like a key dramatic moment just to keep the players excited to come back, leave them hanging with a little bit. And then whether it's a shocking reveal or a major battle about to, that you're announcing about to start, or a huge decision to be made, that good kind of hook can ensure that everyone will be eager to come back once you are back from break.
Right, and that's currently what we're doing right now, as we ended with the travelers heading out to try to rescue some of their friends who are about to be executed out in the ocean, and they're basically just kind of trying to get there at the nick of time, and that's where we ended. So now everyone's kind of chomping at the bit to get back into it. Another cool idea, and we haven't really executed ourselves, but would be more of like a pre-start session. So if your party isn't quite into note taking, they like it more, it's a seat of their pants, and they're very much into it. Have it, be more of like a recap session for everyone to come over for a few hours. Yeah. Whether it's online or in person, you can have that time to kind of get back into the game, get the connection back before the session happens. So you cut out a lot of that warm up. I mean, really, that's what you think of it as. It's a warm up. Actually. You go over your character sheets, you review the story, you spend some time maybe role playing a little bit to get back into it. Maybe
share a meal.
Maybe it's like, oh, everyone was gone, and now this is them at the camp, and now everyone's sitting at camp eating, and what did you do? What happened? Who there? And now you're in it, and when the session starts, rather than spending 4, 5, 6 hours of all of them trying to get back into character, figuring out what's going on, boom, it's like you were never gone.
Yep. It's so easy to just go right back into it if you're already comfortable, like again, with the people that you're meeting with. So holding maybe a couple hours before the session starts, or the day before.
Pre-game.
I think that's a really cool idea.
The game in a D&D sense.
And it gives you a good excuse to throw a party. I think that's always fun. Right. I think I also suggest creating like a fun recap tool to re-engage your players, right? Like something like a letter from an NPC, a short written like little story summary, like, a narrator being like, after the break, they came back.
I mean, it's one of those things where like almost just like another one of those like like everyone's in the tavern or you're all on a ship or you're on the boat. Like reopen the story like that, just like a session 1 would be.
Yeah, just because we are like our campaign you're saying is just starting up. We're going to be starting on a boat. Like we did before.
Right. And the big thing too is like is also planning for breaks. Like obviously things happen, and if you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna be gone for 6 months, that happens.
Yeah,
right?
Always.
But if you plan for them, if you're proactive about scheduling it, so like if during the summer that everyone is so busy because they travel and your table is has family and now kids aren't in school, maybe the summer is the best time to take your break and give yourself an opportunity. Maybe during the winter, where like for us the holidays, with people with families and friends, they want to spend those times,
right? So we don't want to bogart that time.
Get in the way. So but knowing when the breaks come allows you to do those things, like make extra notes, record, set yourself up.
Everyone
so
can prepare.
Really no guilt or surprise, when it's like, hey, this is always when we take a break. So this is when, if you have something you've been putting off, unfortunately, because you want to keep playing, now's the time to go do it.
Here's a little free time.
Right, you got some dental work to do or some kind of, something that's going to take you out for a few weeks. You don't want to miss the session.
Yeah,
boom, now's the time to get it done. And it really just...
We are by no means saying to plan your medical procedures or anything like that around Dungeons and Dragons. If you need medical attention, please go get it immediately.
Please consult professionals as soon as possible.
I just had to put that in there.
Right. But really, I mean, what we're just saying is that taking breaks are a vital part of maintaining tables and campaigns because, just running and going over and over again, you will eventually hit a wall.
Absolutely.
It's impossible. It's impossible.
Yeah, everyone loves to say, "Oh, I could do that forever," and maybe you can, but honestly, it's tough. It's tough to do something for a long time, like even a few years.
Right, and even though breaks can and to a lot of players are these worrisome things of that, is a break just another word for it's over?
Yeah.
But if you take the proper steps, you have careful planning and you communicate with your players and your dungeon masters, it makes them beneficial for everyone so that you can keep your seamless. We love our being able to play on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the dream, I think, for most like D&D players. So if you can do something that can help you continue that process, always take it.
Absolutely.
It's better to take a break willingly than to take a break forcefully and have to, and now you're not coming back.
Right, because we got to take care of ourselves, and then if we don't and we end up getting too sick to go to a session, then all that work we did to make all the sessions beforehand is really wasted because now we're having to miss the next session because we got too sick. I want to make sure that if you guys liked this, like our comments, our commentary and everything, let us know what your experiences are. I think it's important to know how breaks or the lack of breaks affect people in our community, right? Everyone thinks it's like a super fun activity and there's no real drawback, but we do have to think about these things. Sometimes stepping away is the best way to keep your game alive. I don't think anybody should be afraid to take the time they need for themselves.
Right. I mean, athletes take seasons. They have off times. I mean, obviously they're more physical, but D&D is a mental sport.
Absolutely.
Breaks are just the long rest for the soul of the campaign too, right?
Yeah.
Like your campaign is this living thing as well, and if all the people playing it are burnt out, your campaign will burn out.
Yeah.
So use them wisely, and as soon as you do, you'll notice that whereas every bit you're worried, your players and your dungeon master are always going to want to keep playing. So all it does is just recharge those dungeon master batteries, recharge those RP batteries for players, and allows them to just jump back in with more energy, more excitement, ready to go.
Absolutely. And that's a wrap on today's episode. We hope this helped you see that taking a break isn't just okay. It can actually make your game a little better.
Absolutely. Remember, a well-timed break can recharge you and your players so everyone's ready to dive back into the adventure with fresh energy.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic, so join us on Discord to share your break stories, tips, and tricks, or just to chat with our fellow adventurers.
And don't forget to like, review, and subscribe to You Heard It From Us. It helps the community grow and keeps the conversations going.
Until next time, take a break if you need it, and then come back ready to roll those dice.
Thanks for tuning in to You Heard It From Us.
We hope you enjoyed the adventure and picked up a few tips for your own gaming table. But the journey doesn't end here.
We'd love to hear from you. Join our Couple of Nerds Discord community where you can share your thoughts, ask questions, and suggest topics for future episodes. Whether you're a seasoned player or just starting out, there's a spot for everyone at our table.
To keep up with all our latest adventures and episodes, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep the magic alive and connects us with even more amazing listeners like you.
And remember, you can find us on all major podcast platforms. Just search for You Heard It From Us and hit that subscribe button.
We can't wait to see you on Discord and hear your stories. Together, we can make the world of tabletop gaming even more magical.
Until next time, keep rolling those dice.
And may your adventures be legendary.